Welcome everyone. Today we're going to be talking about matter and the different states of matter. As you can see, matter is anything that has mass and occupies space, meaning it has volume. You are looking at three pictures here depicting each state of matter. In the left here you have a gas. Notice how the particles are spread out. It is not very organized. In other words, you'll see on the bottom here it says total disorder. They are spread out, they are moving all over the place, and there's a lot of freedom for the particles to move around. Now, because they're moving, you'll see they possess what is called kinetic energy, which is energy due to motion. When the particles get closer together, you'll notice that you form the liquid phase over here. Notice the particles are closer to each other. They're a little bit more organized than the gas phase, but the particles can still move past each other. As you can see, there's still free movement. Now, if you continue to get these molecules to condense together and you get them to be very close together, you're going to get the solid phase. Notice how organized a solid is. The particles are right next to each other. But even if you're in the solid phase, you still have kinetic energy. The difference is that the kinetic energy of a solid is very low. The particles, they're moving very slowly. In fact, the way you describe the movement is that the particles are fixed in place and they're vibrating in fixed positions. So these are the pictures representing the three states of matter. Now, if we look at each individually, the solid, as I said earlier, is the most organized state. Notice if you go from top to bottom, you're going from most organized over here. So we're going to put here order. And the solid has a definite shape, definite volume. When you become a liquid has two, one out of the two here. You see, a liquid does have a definite volume. If I ask you to get 1 milliliter of water or a gallon of water, you can give me an exact volume. However, a liquid does not have a shape. In fact, what gives the shape to a liquid, it's the container that it's being held in. So it has 1 out of 2. If you continue to go to the gas phase, notice gases have no shape, no volume. Okay. In fact, as you're going towards number 4, which is plasma, these are the least organized states of matter. And you'll notice here that you're going towards disorder. The plasma state is not something we're going to really look at in chemistry. We're only going to focus on solids, liquids, and gases. Plasma is a state found at very high temperatures. The state of matter, the substances are ionized, which means they are charged. You find this in areas like the sun, the stars, of course. On Earth, you don't see it in many places, but lightning would be an example where you would find plasma, perhaps inside a light bulb. So the plasma state, it's an ionized form of matter and found at very high temperatures. The other thing I mentioned earlier was that as you go from a solid to plasma, kinetic energy increases. See, kinetic energy for a solid is very low. The movement is described as the particles just vibrating in place. As you go towards a liquid, then a gas, and even until plasma, the kinetic energy increases. In fact, if we look at a gas, it has very high kinetic energy. The particles are moving very, very fast compared to a liquid or a solid. Now, let's take a look here at a little chart here. Because solid particles are closest together, they are not really compressible. There's no room to bring them any closer together. That means also that the solid would also be the most dense state of matter. When you look at a gas, these particles are further apart. So these particles are least dense. And because they are spread apart, there is room to bring them closer together, so they are compressible. Now, the liquid phase The particles are close, not as close as a solid, but they're close enough that really there's not much compressibility when you're in the liquid phase. So if they are compressible, it would be either slightly or none. So we're going to say that liquids and solids are both incompressible, and that's due to the closeness of the particles. Now remember that as far as freedom to move, the solid just vibrates in place. It has low kinetic energy. The liquid is moving faster compared to a solid, and the gas has a lot of kinetic energy. It has a lot of freedom, and it's moving all over the place. And like I mentioned earlier, it's very disorganized. Now, the only substance that, doesn't follow this pattern would be water. Water is the only substance that when it actually becomes a solid, when it becomes ice, the particles actually spread out, they expand. So water would be the only state of matter or the substance where the state of matter as a liquid would be the most dense. Normally, the solid state of matter is the most dense in general. Okay? And then what we're going to do is, when you compare the three particles, you got your solid, your liquid, and your gas. I want you to remember also that because solids are very close to each other compared to a liquid, we'll be talking about this in the future. There are forces of attraction between particles. They're called intermolecular forces. And because solids are very close to each other, they have very high intermolecular forces. Whereas a gas has very low intermolecular forces. Okay? And that has to do with the fact that they are spread out. They don't really interact with each other as often. So matter, as we said earlier, is anything that has mass and occupies space. And in chemistry, we're going to focus on the three states, solid, liquid, gas. We really don't work with anything in the plasma state in chemistry. So we're going to focus on those three.